Our fourth inductee is Keith Larsen, Menlo College head men's basketball coach from 1997 to 2003. From 1997 to 2003, Menlo College men's basketball was led by the great Keith Larsen. Coach Larsen amassed 79 wins in that time, still the second most by a head coach in the history of Menlo College men's basketball. Coach Larsen also led Menlo to 2 conference titles in 2000 and again in 2002. Named the Cal-Pac Coach of the Year in 1999 and again in 2000, Coach Larsen coached a plethora of greats while at Menlo, including 2000 Cal-Pac Player of the Year Evan Peterson, the first ever Oak to be honored as a men's basketball player of the year. In his time at Menlo, Coach Larsen also served as the director of athletics, while also coaching volleyball, cross country, and golf until full-time head coaches were hired. He also helped start the sports management major at Menlo College, today one of the more popular areas of study for Menlo students. Following his time at Menlo College, Coach Larsen spent 6 seasons at the helm of the CSU Stanislaus men's basketball program, where he built the program to be a constant competitor in the CCAA, and laid the groundwork for the team's incredible success in recent years. Coach Larsen is the 13th head coach inducted into the Menlo College Athletics Hall of Fame, and the 4th head men's basketball coach inducted. Please welcome to the stage 2022 Menlo College Hall of Fame inductee, Keith Larsen.
Bobo, I got 2 new hips. Keith, Dr. Weiner, I really appreciate you starting the program early. Most of my guests have to be in bed by 7:30. 2 of them have to be at the retirement home, and it closes at 8 o'clock. So I'll be brief. Not really. Being the head basketball coach at Menlo in 1997 was a transformative year in my life. It was my 5th year at Stanford, and we had just gotten to the Sweet 16 and lost a tough game to Utah. And in the following year, to no one's surprise, they went to the Final Four. In May of 1997, we have been married my wife Sean and I have been married for 10 years, and we found out that we were going to be adoptive parents. After 20 months, our daughter, Camelin Lee Larsen, was born. She was from Guatemala. Our friend had a midwife, and immediately my wife started doing research on, can we meet the mom? What do we do? How much does it cost? Do we need an attorney? So she was totally on it. I went to look up where Guatemala was. This was PG, before Google. All right, so I actually opened a book up, and I found out that Guatemala was not a city in Mexico. It was its own country. So after 8 trips to Guatemala, they said that you're going to have the craziest 7.5 months of your life. 4 months later, Cammy was born. Math not great in Guatemala. So after 8 trips to Guatemala, my wife brought Cammy home at San Francisco Airport in her arms. In the meantime, another family had a 19-year-old daughter that was also looking for a family. And they were really excited about us adopting Cammy. And so let's fast forward to June 29th, 1997. Cammy's little sister, Victoria, was born. So our family was complete. Completely crazy. I had 2 girls under 2. I was in charge of 1,000 kids at Stanford camp. And my boss at the time, Mike Montgomery, called me in and said, John Arriaga and I have put your name in the hat at Menlo College for the head coaching job. And my head was spinning. I'm like, well, how can I take on more responsibility when I have 2 girls under 2? I haven't slept more than 2 hours in a row in 3.5 months. And as I'm walking from venue to venue with all these kids, I was thinking, how can I do this? Why am I going to do this? And by the way, it's Menlo College basketball. Bud Presley, Bob Williams, my high school coach, Pat McLennan, who's here tonight, was the assistant to both of them. These guys were Menlo legends, and I'm going to coach that team. Well, it happened that a good friend of mine was a former coach, Eddie Joe Chavez, and he had left a really, really strong team. And I'm thinking back on my Stanford days as an assistant coach, and Mom and Dad are not going to be really happy. They've always wanted a child to go to Stanford. Even though I just shagged balls for the guys that actually really went to Stanford, they were very proud of that. And when I got to Menlo, it was so different, so unique, so friendly, so inviting that my family just fell in love with it. At the time, Craig Walsh was my athletic director. And the women's basketball coach, Caitlin Collier, was the associate athletic director. I was the other associate athletic director. He called us in for our first meeting. He said, Caitlin, you got the women's program. Larsen, you got the men's program. I'll take care of football. And then he kind of put his hands out. And we didn't know what that was. And Caitlin and I looked at each other and he says, isn't that what you basketball people do? Do you do like a break or something? So we put our hands in, he said break. And in a year and a half, that was the only meeting we ever had with Craig Walsh. And things ran marvelously. I mean, it was incredible. So I said, well, I guess this is the place I got to be. And Menlo was so inviting to I had 2 little girls. One didn't speak English. One was just born. And they spent all their time at Menlo. They came to every game. They were the highlight of the school. Blair Nagel had children. We had a couple other people that had children on campus. And as I was getting, into my years at Menlo, we would walk to lunch. That was the greatest thing. The whole staff would get together on 11:30, 11:45. We'd walk across the court to lunch. And you could see some of the students, and they would look and they'd point at me and goes, that's the new hoops coach. And the other girl would go, huh? Cammie and Victoria's dad. Oh, yeah, we know that. Yeah. So that was the feeling we had here. And so the first year went great. The team that embraced me was so much better than their sleep-deprived coach. We played really, really well early. We kind of ran out of gas at the end. But now it was time to recruit. And I couldn't wait to get to recruiting. And I said, you know what? I'm going to start with a freshman point guard. I want that guy to be nothing like me, the old point guard. I was selfish. I only shot it when I touched it. I really didn't care about anybody else. I'd look around and say, I'm the best option. I'll shoot it. I want a guy that's going to be a leader, be my coach on the floor, be an incredible communicator. When he walks off that bus, he looks awesome. And then the opposing team is just fearful of him. Here comes Miguel Gutierrez from Hollister High School, the hay balers. He could shoot it. He could handle it. He was a great leader. He came from a great family. I had 2 issues. He was 5'8" and completely deaf. But his dad and Miguel had come to a game the year before, and they saw that we used the Stanford cards. They saw that my assistant coach were putting up, and he said, this is the place for me. Well, 4 years later, two conference championships, 2 visits to the Indiana National Championship. And the one thing about Miguel is he can read lips. Also, most of the referees that worked my games could read lips too, and it got me in a little bit of trouble. But to have him for 4 years and the Justin Trotts of the world, it just made my life so much easier. When our first or second year, we had gone down and played a really good team. They were ranked maybe 3 or 4 in the nation, and we lost by 40. And they came up to Menlo and they played us, and nobody thought that we could even stay close to them. And it was a tight game, back and forth. We made a couple plays down the stretch. Mike Myers took a charge. Tyrone got a couple rebounds. It was just awesome. And we won, and the place was going nuts. It was just packed. We go up into the locker room. They're messing my hair up. I hate that. And I'm so happy. And I go down into the gym, right? And I'm getting to the door, and I'm waiting for my fans just to come out and adore me. And I looked, I was a little disappointed. No one was there. No students, no fans. And the people that were left in the gym, I look in the corner, and there's these 2 massive football players. And on top of these massive football players are my daughters, Cammie and Victoria. And they're in a scrum. And everyone is just going crazy about them and how, and I kind of realized this is what athletics is all about. It's about family. It's about, moments. And, that really touched, my heart. Halfway through my second year, I became the athletic director at Menlo College. And I'm looking around going, what are we doing here, right? And so the first thing I had to do was I had to hire a volleyball coach. And I had coached volleyball the last half of the season. My wife said, no, you're not doing all this. So I called Don Shaw at Stanford, and I said, hey, you have anybody that, maybe could help me out? And he says, yeah, I got a guy. His name is Bill M. Walby. And I'm thinking, okay, so I interview him. And he says, I just want you to know that my wife, Kathy, is very organized. And if you need any help with the administrative stuff at the athletic department, she could help out. Well, hiring Bill Emwally was a very shaky move on my part. Hiring Kathy Emwally was a great hire. Kathy and Bill, can you stand up? And we want to acknowledge you. Those people have been such an inspiration to Menlo College. They've been my coach, my friend, my mentors, and I just love them to death. And Kathy invented the expression, other duties as assigned. I mean, every Saturday at the football games, every, concession stand that you needed, she was there. I'm very proud of the fingerprint we put on Menlo College. We helped start the undergraduate sports management program with Doug Carroll. I listened to Keith Spataro and Lee Allen about starting a wrestling program here. We went through 9/11 with a Middle Eastern quarterback who had broken every record, and every news agency was on top of Menlo. And I thought our staff, our players handled it incredibly. We had such a high energy and a great feeling here. And the reason I've spent 43 years of coaching, and many of those reasons are here tonight. My dad, my first coach. He told me, he goes, your sisters, Sandy and Michelle, you are going to coach their softball team. I said, okay. And then when I was 14 years old, Steve Filios, the head coach at St. Francis, CCS administrator, said, you want to be my assistant coach? And at 14 years old, that was my first gig. Peter Ramus, who also was my assistant coach here at Menlo, gave me my first paying job at Parkside Junior High School, and then got me the job at Mills High School the following year. Pat McGlennon is here, who also coached at Menlo College, was my freshman and JV coach. These guys were the cornerstone of why I wanted to do this. And there's so many more players, coaches, assistant coaches, faculty members that helped me through this. And I just want to thank all of you families. My godson's here. All my friends are here. A lot of the guys I played with are here. Some of my Stanford players are here. And this is really special. And I just want you to know that for 43 years, I've got to do a get-to job. And I've never had a got-to job. Thank you.